have a point to make, actually, very
Please.
briefly. The thought that occurred to me when you made that point earlier was at the time, the amount of prose works, there are novels, I know the novel existed, but they're not really to the extent that later became in the 19th century, later on in the 19th century, 20th century, as a literary form. When you're talking about people more used to reading long poems, yes, there weren't the long, other long pieces to compete with.
Yes, this is true. I mean, there were long novels, of course, and you can't get longer than Clarissa, can you? And Tom Jones and all the rest of it. But the habit of thinking of long poems is in some sense primary, but also in some sense familiar.
Yes.
Was common then, and it's disappeared now. The novel has displaced it. And with that displacement is that we take for granted a novel's perspective, which is basically the individual and society, crudely speaking.
Yes.
Okay, lots of novels are more complicated than that, but essentially it's the individual and society.
Yes.
Whereas long poems aren't that. Long poems are, I don't like the phrase the human condition, but let's say it's the human condition in its utmost, in its relationship to that which we don't know anything about. What the hell are we?
Yes.
The gods, death. You know, that's what the poems are about. And the novel, of course, Tolstoy and Proust, I mean, they're up there with the great poets. But the norm of novel reading shifts from
Yes.
what poems are associated. So thank you for the question.
Yes. Because, sorry.
Sorry.
No, please.
Sorry, no, I was just
No,
wondering,
please.
can I just ask, do you feel biographers of Byron are more guilty of not reading his work than biographers of any other
That's a good
writer?
question. Yes, it's a good question. I suppose I probably think yes. I hadn't thought of that before. And I suppose the reason for that is simply that Byron is so well known. He's such a large figure that you think you know him before you know him, so to speak. Whereas if you're writing a biography about Shelley or Gray kind of thing, I mean, they're known. And they're not known in this huge tub-thumping sort of, you know, on the television film and all the rest of it. Everyone knows who Byron is, kind of thing. So I think the presumption that people know what Byron is without actually knowing him all that well, in particular without reading him very much, is much more common, I think, than probably most writers. Yes, that's
It's
true.
just something about celebrity, really.
Yes,
Celebrity
yes,
status.
yes, this is true. You know, very few poets are a celebrity in that special sense, in the way that Byron's a celebrity. It's just, you can't grumble about it. It's part of his being, isn't it? And yet there's huge problems with it. It means you don't take him seriously. The whole point of my book is we should take Byron seriously. That's it. And he was taken seriously, of course.
The question that I meant to ask you, in a way, arises just out of what you said now, and it arose a little bit out of your conversation with Gavin Hobbs about
Yes.
the words, because he comes back to you and says, you know, the essence of your argument is philosophical seriousness,
Yes.
and you kind of poo-poo him, if I can use that expression, and say, Byron, no, philosophical, he didn't really like philosophy, and serious, no, we can't really call him serious. But on the other hand, he's a really deep, I think you used the word serious again, serious thinker. So, you know, like everything to do with Byron, there's a little bit of a kind
Yes,
of
yes.
conflict in there.
Yes, I mean, if you take those three readings, if you take Lara, who is a baronic hero, who lives in his will, kind of thing, and lives on a grand scale, and yet at the same time Byron criticises him in that tremendously, and he's sterile. That's part of it. In the case of the Doge Foscari, he doesn't live in his will. He admires the will of Venice. He tries to apply it to himself. He tortures his son. And yet, part of him recognises that no, nothing rests upon our will, yes? And then if you go to a Laura Raby, who, so to speak, has no will, she gazes at the world, and she's in contact with that which is beyond this world. The world's beyond this perplexing waste, live within her. She doesn't thrust her will, she doesn't have a will, and yet she is She's not empty, she's strong, she's Byron. Now, Byron in those three very different examples is thinking about exactly the same thing all the time. What is our will? What is our relationship to our will? Are we founded in our will or the surrender of our will, or whatever? He's thinking about the same thing over a period of about 10 years, yes? I call that thinking. That's serious, that's thinking. It's not thinking like Pascal, it's not thinking like Einstein, but it is thinking. And the whole point of my book is to project that sense that Byron thinks. He keeps in touch with things. He doesn't just keep repeating the same thought. They anguish him, and he moves. He has movement in relation to them. So I'm grateful for the question.
I seem to remember you mentioned the two sides of Byron's personality. I defined them probably inaccurately as the laughing dandy and the tragic romantic.
Yes.
I wonder if you could explore those in
Yes,
sides in his different
I've said this
poems.
before, I'm fond of this, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to repeat it, even if you heard it before. I always liked the idea that Mercury, Hermes, the messenger god of the Greeks, the Romans take it as well, he goes all over the place because he's a matter of all the gods. So he's well known up in the bright Olympus, and he knows Neptune, but he goes down to Hades, to Pluto, to the underworld. So iconographically, Mercury is represented with one half of his face dark and one half bright, because he's familiar with, and that seems to be absolutely brilliant for Byron. Byron is like that. He has that. And they're separate, and yet it's the same face. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rehash that, because I always liked that idea.
So it's the humour and the tragedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I keep saying yes. I'm just trying to refine it, but yes will do very nicely.
When he started writing, I wish I were so much clay,
Yes.
did he know that halfway through he was going to break out into the, well, actually we could have a drink and that might make things a bit better?
Very good question. Very. I keep praising everybody else's questions like a sort of, but it's nice to have. God, I've lived in Roma Balance and all the rest of it. I have had intellectual conversations for quite a long time, so it's really fun. It's very difficult to know that, isn't it? But Byron is always such a composite being that he says that he doesn't like argument. That goes with the philosophy thing, because if he argues something or other, he always instantly sees the opposite argument.
Yes.
So, but that isn't simply about an opposite argument.
No.
It goes back to what I said a moment ago about, I would to heaven, the controlled personality, and blood-bound knowledge and passion feeling, which is not controlled, but controls us. But I was always acutely aware of that. So if he's beginning a poem in one way, I think he always knows. That's how he lives. That's what his poetry is. I mean, he does sustain things, of course, but he's not a sustainer in the way that Milton sustains Paradise Lost. He doesn't want to sustain. He's always setting in motion something, usually contrarieties, and the energy that comes out of that. And if possible, moving towards something, not just simply enjoying the opposition. There's a lot of energy in that, of course, but it's better if there's some movement. Yeah.
He relies on his own contradictions
Yes,
to make them
exactly so. It's a good comparison with Burns, who he describes. Burns is full of contradictions. He's a Republican, he's a monarchist, he's a whatever. But Burns doesn't know he's full of contradictions. Byron knows. These are bloody good questions.
Yes, Bernard, I was interested in what you said about Byron's power to enlarge.
Yes.
And for example, in Cain, I'm fascinated by the space travel.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
When Satan takes him into space, and it's so modern because it's so visual, and also it's the matter of will, because then it's a matter of will and temptation.
Yes.
And he comes back and he resists. And the second thing which struck me in what you said is you spoke about his pessimism, that can't we see optimism in Byron? He's so invigorating.
Yes, always. Even in that, I would to heaven there was so much play. In the end, And it's the same as with Dode's philosophy of speech. You couldn't get a more pessimistic speech than that. It's impossible. But there's energy in it.
It's
And the Doge loves the clarity of his understanding. I can't remember, I used to lecture on prophecy, and there's a German, Gotthardt von Bad, who writes about prophecy. And of course prophecies are either, biblical prophecies, are either destruction or salvation. There's only two kinds of biblical prophecy. And Gotthardt von Bad made the point that even the destruction prophecies were received well because they made doom intelligible.
Well, I'm going to allow myself the final question, if that's not too self-indulgent. There's a long tradition, a long idea, isn't there, in scripture reading, that when we read scripture, scripture at the same time reads us.
Yes.
And I wonder whether you think, Bernard, that could be transferable to reading Byron.
Oh yes, undoubtedly. Yes, it's just a simple yes, really. I'll keep on saying yes. I mean, it's true of all great literature, isn't it? You read it, and on the one hand, it takes you to places you don't know anything about. It takes you there. On the other hand, it, so to speak, awakens what is familiar to you, which you haven't really registered. You know, that's the two aspects of reading, isn't it? The going somewhere else, and the fact that it tells you where you are with a kind of definition that you haven't got, and which you're simply grateful for. Yes, that's one of the main reasons for it. If I were to grade these questions, I'd give them all 9 3/4.
Is that all? Well, I think it's time to wind up this particular scene before we go in that direction again. I think, if you don't mind being thought of as an antidote, but I think you are an antidote to the kind of simplistic, and you gently alluded to this earlier when you referred to some biographies of Byron. You're an antidote to the kind of simplistic and trite thinking that would have Byron be this or that or the other. He isn't. He could be all of those or some of them. But as you said in something you've written for the Society recently, Byron is an extremely complicated person, difficult to pin down or summarise, and you've shown that to us again this evening in your usual lively way. And I'd just like to share with you a quotation that seems apt. This is Bacon, writing in the 16th century. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Viscount St Albans today would say person, of course. Anyway, you've given us the conference that has been the event this evening, and you've encouraged us to continue reading and to reread and to read intelligently. And you've shown in all your writings what it is to understand and to appreciate Byron. And there's no better volume to take home this evening, as many of us will be, than reading Byron, which is available.
This is the advertisement bit.
Yeah. I should also mention before we finish that, and this is not of least importance, that Bernard for many years was the mainstay because he was the second editor of the Byron Journal. He was the mainstay of the journal over a period of, I think, more than 15 years. 17. And some of you, I know, are familiar with the journal. You'll receive it twice a year if you're a member of the Society. If you receive if you have received or want to receive the latest issue, you open it, and there's Bernard, as well as Robin and Chris. Are you no, Alan Rawls.
I'm not writing it.
Emily. Yeah, but hardly an issue goes by without Bernard reappearing, and that's exactly what we want. So many thanks again. This has been.
Can I do my little thank you?
You can do your little thank you, yes, yes.
Can I do it now or a bit loud? Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you first, I think. I think that's the right way. So let's
Sorry, my thank you. Yes, I couldn't possibly do this without thanking Ken for setting up this evening in the positive and friendly way that Ken does things. I'd like to thank Marc for doing the filming. Which is, this session will be put on 2 websites, we hope. The biggest single thanks I have is to David, who's sitting there, who hasn't been mentioned once in the tribute. Without him, the book wouldn't exist. And without him, the form of the book would be very different. Because of him, I rewrote the Manfred chapter, very much modified the Cain and Mary chapters. About 20 sentences in the book are written by him, and about 7 footnotes. Absolutely every reference in the book, and there are an awful lot of references, has been referred to a book in a library, which is now extremely rare in academic circles. And that took a huge amount of effort and time. So I personally...
The one thing we are sure of is there'll still be some that are wrong, but
Yeah.
that's the nature
So
of these
can we
things.
have a round of applause? Finally, I'd really like to thank absolutely all of you for coming, and also for the... Now, I'll put it up to 10 for the questions.
Well, thank you again, Bernard, and thank you for everyone. Don't disappear before you have a little further refreshment, and with Don Juan, we can fill high the cup with Samian wine, because there's plenty left. So thank you again, Bernard.
How do we buy the book? How do we actually buy the book?
Through Marc.
Marc.
Yes.